Hey guys, we're going to be looking at another resin figure kit from Hasegawa. This time we'll be looking at their 1/12 scale Amy Mcdonnell from their egg plane series. So let's open her on up and take a look. Apologies while I unwrap it. I do keep it in the bubble wrap to help protect the parts. As with all resin figures, resin is much more delicate than plastic, so it is what it is. So, we'll start with the main torso. Overall, Hasegawa's done a fairly good cast with this. Do have a bit of mold line that will need to be cleaned up, as well as this pore stub here. Thankfully, they didn't trim that down and leave a mess. And similarly here with the hair. In terms of detailing, they've done a pretty good job capturing the detailing in her torso section, as well as in her sports bra and bust, and similarly in the face. Thankfully, I don't see any type of bubbles or anything of that sort that will require cleaning, so that's always a good sign. Moving on to her tied up top. There is a bit of flash, and some of the resin does seem thinner in places. I'm not sure if this is just due to a poor cast or just how they designed it. And I'm not sure if this will show up really on camera because of the lighting, but you can see some areas that are of a much lighter color where it almost seems like you can see through. But as I said, with some of the flashing, it will make it a little more challenging to clean up with the thinness, but should be doable. Continuing on to her legs, there is a decent amount of pore stubs that will need to be cleaned up, as well as, thankfully, some only moderate mold lines that need to be cleaned, most notably on this side, at least on my copy. Again, one of the issues with resin figures is that every pore is going to be a little different, so that is something to be aware of going in. Though they looks like they did some really strange pore patterns with this figure, but I don't know. Beyond that, there's a lot of subtle detailing to all the various folds to her bike suit, as well as all the protective gear. So overall, very nicely done. In terms of fit, unfortunately, I won't be able to fit this on over because of the pore stubs, but we'll give it a go. Yeah, that's not going to work. Overall, fit is pretty decent. If I can get this. Obviously, not having that jacket tied up around her waist is going to affect the stability a little, but fits quite nice. Moving on to now the last little detail parts. Hopefully that torso didn't get away. The casting on the arms, why we don't have the same issues with the mold lines, there is a bit more flashing around the fingers, so that is going to need some cleanup. And similarly with the hair piece, though thankfully we don't have too many stray strands to individually clean up, so that's good there. And thankfully also this other follic is relatively flash free, so just a quick light sanding will get out the last little bits. And then obviously the drink she's holding, which is surprisingly does have the pour tab and the opening molded, which is a little surprising. But let me get these back in, and then we'll go to the instructions. Okay. So moving on to decals, we get a couple different sets of eyes to go with. One set looking straight ahead and one looking to the side. Decals for the cans and markings for the bike suit. Do like that they give you two sets, so in case you goof up, it's nice to have a spare. As for the instructions, there's really not that much to this. Obviously, with this small a part count, you're not going to be that far out in the weeds in terms of figuring out. Only thing I would be careful with is the can, getting that to fit into her hand. That might give you some issues, especially if you use the decal. So that is something to be aware of. Beyond that, it's pretty much shake and bake. Paint key, again, all Mr. Color. So you should be able to figure out pretty decently. Or you can honestly also do a custom paint job for her. That's something to consider. So, overall, much like the previous figure we looked at before, while there's not a whole lot to these little kits, there's surprisingly decent amount of detailing, and will build up quite nicely once you get them together. I do think the price-wise, as these run about $40 to $50, is a little steep though for the size. But given the 1/12 scale, they do present a bit of an interesting midpoint, and I would say they are kits to consider if you're wanting to get into figure painting, as they are smaller in size and will give you a good idea of what you're going to have to deal with without the higher cost point of, say, like one of Volks's Karagun kits, because those typically run $100 plus. So, although it's small, it's definitely one to consider. So that was a look at Hasegawa's 1/12 scale Amy Mcdonnell. Simple but good little kit. Until next time.